Welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. We'll be recording this this webinar because I know that there's some people that RSVP'd that would like to attend but couldn't. And some people are still joining. So for fun, while we're waiting for everyone to join and get all their tech sorted, if you would like to put your favorite Latin word or Latin phrase into the chat for everyone to see, that would be a fun, hopefully painless icebreaker here. I'll start. Right. Welcome. I see a lot of great responses in the chat as people are joining. As others are joining, just a reminder, put your favorite Latin phrase or Latin word into the chat while we're waiting for everyone to get started. I see a lot of great ones already. Humanitas, Silva, Carpe Diem, classic. Um, I see we have about 20 people. I'm going to wait till 3 more minutes, make sure everyone's joined, and then we will officially start. And this meeting will be recorded so that if anyone has to leave early for a class, I know for some of you this might be the middle of the school day for those on the West Coast. And we will send this recording to everyone that wasn't able to attend the RSVP. Love conquers all. It's another good one. Oh, there's 2. Oh, Diana. Diana likes it twice. Twice as much. All right, there's a few more people still joining. For those that have just joined, if you could chat your favorite Latin word or Latin phrase into the chat box. I had a fun idea to do a word cloud of these, but that was not cooperating that far with me today. All right, and time. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and officially start. Welcome everyone. My name is Jamal Darty. I'm the Elementa curriculum manager for the Paideia Institute. And a little background about me. I'm originally from Oklahoma. I think there might be some others from Oklahoma in this meeting because Dr. Hansen invited several Oklahoma Latinists, which is great to see my fellow Okies. But originally from Oklahoma, and I taught Latin and some other languages for about 10 years. And then I left the classroom in 2016 and joined the Paideia Institute originally to develop their ICORA program, which is an after-school Latin program for younger 4th through 6th graders. And that then developed into creating a school day program, which is Elementa. So I'm here to share all about Elementa with you guys today. We'll walk through what it is, what resources are out there that go with it. And I'm also happy to introduce my colleagues. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. Actually, Stephanie and then Chris Myers are also here with us. Stephanie, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Stephanie Vogel. I am a middle school Latin teacher. I work in Lower Merion School District. I'm right outside of Philadelphia. My building does 5, 6, 7, and 8. I have been working with the Elementa curriculum I've used Elementa 1 for the past 3 years, and I've used Elementa 2 for the past 2 years. And I have been working with Paideia in a consulting capacity for the last few months. on the Elementa program. It's really wonderful. I'm really excited to share some of my experiences with you here today.
So good to meet all of you. My name is Chris Myers. I'm the partnerships manager here at Paideia, and I have the pleasure of helping schools and institutions get transitioned to our curricula, and also helping them with the integrations with their different LMSs as well. I've been teaching Latin now for only my 7th year now, but I've been for half of that, for about my 3rd year now, I've been using the Paideia curriculum. I've also used in the past Ecce Romani, Lingua Latina, Wheelox, and Cambridge, and have now been using Living Latin. And of course, I oversee teachers as well that use Elementa. And I'm also going to be piloting the ancient Greek curriculum as well next year. So I'm really excited about that. And so I can answer any questions that kind of fall within that wheelhouse. So thank you so much, and it's great to meet you.
All right, thank you both. So I'm going to run through what the Elementa curriculum is and what the different books and resources are that go with it. And also first, I'm just kind of letting everyone know the agenda. And then after we talk about that, I'm going to hand the floor over to Stephanie, who's going to talk about her experience in using Elementa. And then, of course, there's time for questions. I want to hear from everyone. What do you think? What resources you might be using now? And so we'll have some time for question and answers at the end. So Elementa, I'm clicking on the wrong screen. There we go. So this is a big rundown of all the printed materials for Elementa. We have our first book, which is Foundations for Latin, and it comes hardback, paperback. And I feel like this is a bit of a misnomer or semantic problem to call our other book a workbook, because it's really a consumable textbook. It's grayscaled textbook with a few extra interactive exercises to be built like an interactive notebook. But it allows a little bit more space for students to write in the workbook, to write answers, or to take notes in the margins than the textbook would. That way, if you want a class set that students do not write in, they write on their own paper, you would go for the hardback or the paperback. But if you want students to write in a spiral bound textbook of their own, we have the consumable version. And we came out about 2 years ago with Elementa 2, Next Steps in Latin. And I would say the first one, the best age range is about 4th through 6th grade. It really depends on the schools that we have using this. I've even seen it used in high schools as a remedial English class. And it is very much a foundation curriculum. It has a lot of mythology, has a lot of derivatives and literacy-based lessons. And so it's not going to get into the heavy Latin grammar yet. Latin Element 2 does that a bit more, and also focuses on Roman history. There's a lot of Roman culture in both of these books, but I built them in a way that if you start with Elementa 2, it's not a problem. Because when I was teaching, I taught 5th grade students that everyone was required to take Latin. And then we also had the 6th grade, they'd go into 6th grade and there would be new students that were added that never had Latin. And so it was always a problem of how do you integrate these students who have not had any Latin, but they're at an older age level and maybe they can move faster into the curriculum. And I hear a lot of Latin teachers talk about this. They've had students that come from a different background, different schools, different texts. So how do you get them going with that? So Elementa 2 does a review of a lot of things in Elementa 1. It's all built in each unit, but then it moves faster and goes deeper with the grammar. But my favorite thing about Elementa is the resources for the teachers. I'm going to show you more of that and more of everything in a minute. Because after teaching for so many years, one of the things that I spent a lot of time doing was preparing my lessons every day. And I was making activities, making the cards for activities, thinking of ways to do a game and get students active and using Latin. And so I wanted to do something that would really help teachers and take some of that burden off, but still allow a lot of flexibility. So I'm going to show you in a minute that the resources for teachers are really, really robust. And this is my favorite part. If you don't buy or use the Elementa textbooks themselves, the resources for teachers. You can plug and play in any classroom. I was also inspired by Girls on the Run. I don't know if anyone ever did Girls on the Run, but they had an amazing setup where they gave you a binder. It's an after-school program, and it has scripted lesson plans. They gave you stickers. They gave you everything you needed, and it was just plug and play. And as a teacher, implementing something at the end of my workday that I could just run with, it made it so easy. I was like, I want to do that for Latin for teachers. And I know everyone has their own students that are different and have different needs. So trying to meet that need, but also be flexible was the goal of all of this. So these are the print products, and coming soon this summer are the same resources for teachers with a manual and the materials. But we also have digital products, which are going to be, there's an online course for students, and you can buy student seats where it includes both Elementa 1 and 2. And then for teachers, if you just want to use the print products, but you want to display videos or slideshow presentations in class, there's the digital resources. And there are over 150 slideshow presentations for these teachers that help facilitate the games, help facilitate classroom discussions, and a lot of things in those resources. So a little bit about what's in the textbook to jump into this. So the first textbook focuses on parts of speech as grammar. It doesn't talk about the cases. You don't get into conjugating verbs, but you just talk about what is a noun. And I found in teaching 5th grade Latin, so many of them came from all parts of the city. This was in Washington, D.C., and not all of them learned in their various elementary schools that they came from to our school what a noun was. And so reviewing that and having scaffolded lessons where first they're going to talk about it in English and practice that in English, and then they're going to apply recognizing those things in Latin is the goal of this textbook. And then also talking about derivatives and how those work with Latin and how you can use a Latin root word to discover the meaning of so many different English words. And then, of course, mythology. So every unit has 3 lessons, and each lesson will focus on one of those elements. The first on grammar, the next on Roman culture, and then on mythology. And the culture and mythology also use the vocabulary that's introduced, of course, from the first. So a little example of this scaffolding that I was talking about. They learn about what a noun is, and then they start recognizing this in English sentences, whether it's a more abstract noun or vice versa, or something that's more concrete. And then they have an exercise on derivatives, and they might have more in Latin. There are some examples of sentences and other things that they have some very basic sentences to translate from Latin. We have primary sources, lots of things in this textbook. And of course, the mythology lesson. This is where a lot of the sentences come in that are really summaries of each paragraph and really, really simple. This is an example of some of the interactive exercises that we added to the workbook version to try to make it more there's things in the materials that teachers can then paste into the books, or students would paste into the books. So something that they can manipulate with their hands a little bit more. And then the second book, I almost left this out, which when Stephanie talks about these characters all the time in her class, the students are these narratives in Latin. And so at this point, students are able to do a little bit more. They'll have a lot more vocabulary. They'll be getting into a lot more grammar. And so we were like, let's bring in some stories. And so we have these 3 friends. It's set in Ostia, this big melting pot. And the theme of Elementa 2 is also the diversity of the Roman Empire. So many textbooks that I used when I was younger and looking at as a teacher were always set in Rome and set with upper class, very families that were depicted as being very white and wealthy. And I wanted to show a different side of that. So not only with the characters that we have and the narrative, but also the history focuses on people from all classes. We have Spartacus, we have Boudica, and all locations across the empire, so they can see these very important historical figures and how they changed the history in the course of Rome, or they were pivotal figures, even if they weren't necessarily Roman, like Boudica and Zenobia, a lot of great women leaders as well, which I loved. And then as I was talking about the teacher's manual, this is what one of the scripted lesson plans is. We have these core lessons. So if you go back to the table of contents, you can see there's about 33 lessons. So 11 units, 3 lessons per unit. And so if we took those 33 lessons, we made a core lesson from each of those with a lesson plan with alternate activities, things to get students really active. And then we added 4 extension lessons. I don't know if I've ever talked to a teacher that's been using a curriculum that's been able to use all of the extension lessons, but it gives them options then. So whether you're teaching Latin 1 day a week and you want to just go with the core lesson, or if you're teaching 1 lesson every single day and you want to pick from among these based on what the students are interested in or what direction you want to take the class in, these can add to extra content, or they can be something to practice the content, more games and things that were introduced in the core lesson. I like to think of, when I talk about the teacher's manual and the teacher's materials up here, it's kind of a set. I like to think of it as like a board game. Whenever you have a board game, you have that big thick booklet of rules and directions, and then you have all the playing pieces. So the materials are the playing pieces, and the manual tells you how to play the games. So these are the scripted lessons in the manual, and then in the materials are all a lot of student-facing materials. If there's cards needed for a game, there's assessments, and all of the assessments are only based on the core material, not any of the extension plans. And then handouts for students to take notes based on activity. There's about 200 pages of these different things. So yeah, and then to give you a quick preview too of the digital practice, I'm so used to doing this with more of a one-on-one audience and having time for questions, but I feel like with 20 people, I'm going so fast here. If you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat and I can check it out on just the print products right now. I like a bit more interaction. So if there's something that pops up, feel free to add it to the chat and I will answer those questions as they come up. Okay, but for the digital products, first, I'm going to skip over to a new screen. This is our own platform. And so if you're using it as a teacher, it allows for you to see reporting and how students are doing. And like I said, we have both Elementa 1 and 2 in the student course. And so let me see an example, go to like 8. There's a few videos in here. There's directions for activities that they can do at home with some things downloadable. It's going to load. There we go. So it has instructions for activities and it has a lot of videos for students. The resources for teachers has more videos available, but there's a few for students here that they can watch the video and see the quiz. Let me see okay, the video is going to be in the main lesson. We have these fun animated videos. Most of the videos are based on the culture lessons and the mythology. We're going to be adding more grammar videos as we build this further. We're always looking on ways to improve and add to our courses, whether it's the digital or the print. And so with the Unit 2, I can show some examples of the, here we go. The comics are here with a little bit of help, has some items glossed when they need it. So there's some words they might not have yet. And so it has this fun adventurous story where there's bad guy, things happen. I don't want to give any spoilers, but there's a lot of fish sauce involved and a dog that needs to be rescued. That's my teaser trailer. That works, Stephanie. So yeah, so this is the digital course for students. It has quizzes and teachers can track. And then for teachers, it has all of the videos available for them to watch. Some of these videos are in Latin. And then it has the exact same video available in English. We are working on releasing a whole set of a new workbook version that is actually more of a workbook, and then we'll change our names and call one a consumable textbook and this one a workbook, and it would have the ability for students to fill out notes on these videos as well. So these are the videos, but then what's really fun too are the presentations. So like I said, there's 33 main lessons, but then there's 4 extension lessons that teachers can choose from. So it'll show a slideshow that they could put up in class. And each slideshow includes a bell ringer question. This is meant to be very, very open-ended, not based on previous lessons, but give students a chance to really engage them in what's coming. And then the end exit question is up there. So you don't have to always be writing these on the board, but it's up there for you to, if I skip through all the slides about Roman names, something very concrete from the lesson. So there's over 150 presentations that you can just choose from, plug and play, look at what the teacher's manual says, and go from there. I'm going very quickly, but there's just so much, and I want to make sure I get to all of it. And one thing I also want to say is that all of you are going to get some of these things. So some of the freebies that we're giving away that are from the materials, this is a color by number worksheet for students where they match the Latin noun to the adjective. So there is a little bit of grammar that it talks about and how to do that in the textbook. So each of these are different, and then they have to take that color, figure out what it is in Latin, what number it matches with, and fill in this color by number. This whole packet is going to be emailed to everyone who RSVP'd, but this is one of my favorites because we at Paideia appreciate the spoken Latin aspect, and so trying to treat Latin like a modern language and getting a lot more spoken and more engagement. So this is a guess who game using Roman coins. And so you can give your students a little bit of vocabulary to help if they don't have it yet, but I thought this might be applicable for a lot of different Latin classrooms. You could talk about, give them word for kaput and different animals. And then they have to pick one coin, and they have a partner who has the same board who will, and they ask different yes or no questions about which coin they might have and try to figure out which one their partner's chosen. And then the second Elementa book, Elementa 2, has a lot more dense grammar. It moves very quickly through everything in it is in the Intro to Latin syllabus for the National Latin exam as well. And so we have first through third declensions for nouns, all the cases. They get the imperfect and future. And so while they're not reading Latin yet, we wanted to present them with some primary sources that then they could take a few words of and analyze, and then also discuss with some of these larger themes. So there's a 2-page handout with primary sources and discussion questions on the Gracchi brothers. And then finally, something for fun from Elementa 2 is a skit of going to the doctor that students could do. And then finally, and included in this, it's in a separate document because it's huge, is a really fun game called The Wrath of the Gods, in which you have this sheet printed out for all the students, but then you go through and you follow the directions on all of these slides in which they go on a journey and they have to survive. Let me see if I can find an example of, it doesn't have the one filled out, but they they choose one of their heavenly deities to be their parent. That one can never be angry with them, but the others will get angry with them based on their decisions in the game. And so it takes one class period. It's kind of a plug and play digital simulation game that a lot of people have told me they have a lot of fun with. So, all right, that is the fastest rundown that I can give to make sure I have time for questions and I can go over anything specific. And yeah, is there a question coming? How you present prefixes and suffixes and other derivative material. Sure. So there is a lesson on prefixes and suffixes in, I guess I should start with the early derivative material. So it talks about what is a derivative in Elementa 1 and how it happens in English. So there's an introduction to this for students about Romance languages. And there are some extension lessons to go a little further with this for students where they talk about the history of the English language and why Latin is present in the English language and why there are so many derivatives while it is not a Romance language itself. And so we have one simple reading, but then you can take it further. There are a lot of activities that students can do throughout the book. So one is this is an activity that repeats throughout where they have to figure out what the Latin root could be for this word. And then they use that word in context to figure out what it could mean. So this is a real life skill that they might come across as a Latin word in context of a sentence, but they're going to use those skills of, I know these Latin roots, how can I apply this to literacy skills? And so this type of activity shows up again and again in the assessments. I think every single unit has a derivative activity like this. One other really fun one that I like in the materials is where students build their own derivative here. And so they're given prefixes and they're given Latin roots and they're given suffixes that say like, okay, if you add this suffix, it's going to make it a verb and so forth. And so then they come up with their own Latin root and it kind of helps them understand how words are all invented anyway. Every word is a made up word, as some wise person once told me. And so they make up their own and they figure out what it means based on how they put it together. So I've had students do this before and they get to draw a fun picture. My favorites were like pre-pessimation. It's the moment right before something really tragic and sad happens, or to re-optimate is to make yourself happy again. So they give us some very amusing fun derivatives, and I hope that helps with that question, prefixes, suffixes, and that. So thank you, Mr. Perot. Any other questions? A lot of great Latin words. All right. Andrea says, could this program be used or how could it be used in a hybrid school or homeschool co-op that meets in person once a week? Students younger than 4th grade participate with older siblings in this program, and how much speaking Latin is involved? Okay, there's a lot of questions here. So we do have a lot of parents and small homeschool groups using this. And so when you look at the activities, you have to pick and choose what is going to work for my small group versus what is going to work better for a class of 30. So we try to provide a lot of variety with this. And for using younger than 4th grade, it really depends on that 4th grader and how much, if they need reading support or if they're eager and with it. It really depends on the student, but I know we have used it definitely with younger students. I think even as young as 1st graders. So it's hard when people ask what age Elementa is for, because I've seen it used in so many different scenarios from 3rd through 10th grade. But I would say the target is usually 4th grade through 6th or 7th. Okay. All right. And I'm going to hand the floor over to more questions too, but I'm going to also hand the floor over now to Stephanie and talk about how she's using it how she's been using it, her fellow teachers, the whole district, from here.
Thank you, Jamel. So I've been a Latin teacher for 13 years, and I've taught fifth grade all the way up through AP, and I've taught with a lot of different resources. And I think depending on your experiences and the resources that you've used, as a Latin teacher, you've probably spent a lot of time making your own resources because the resource that you're using doesn't have any. And so when I started using Elementa 3 years ago, I would echo Jamel's sentiments that the strongest part of this curriculum are the resources and the fact that they already exist. They are perfectly tailored to the vocabulary and the target grammar in each unit, and really all you have to do is print and go. That's all it is. So the structure of each unit is really predictable and helpful for students and teachers. So right now I use Elementa 1 with my fifth graders. I see my fifth graders every day. We have 30 minutes a day, which goes pretty quickly, right? There are 27 of them. So getting my 27 fifth graders in the room settled before we, get up and move around again. It's a lot. It's a whirlwind. But the structure of Elementa and the activities therein are always things that they're excited about, and they're super helpful just to help us with having a routine, getting into things right away. So with Elementa 1, there's 8 to 10 new vocabulary words per chapter. It's a manageable number for students that age, I find. The students I have in fifth grade who are working with Elementa 1 have varying experiences with language as well. So we don't offer language at the elementary level in my district. So a lot of the students have never had any language before, unless they speak a different language at home, or have had other language exposure if they've gone to school in other places. So for a lot of my students, this is their first experience learning a different language. So it's a manageable amount of vocabulary words. In the textbook, in our consumable book, the vocabulary is sheltered in a really nice way. They get to practice with the target grammar. The derivatives are really helpful in building the literacy skills that Jamel spoke about earlier. In the materials book, we have, like, in addition to the derivatives activities Jamel showed you in the text, there are also in every unit in Elementa 1 just like several pages of extra derivatives using all of the target vocabulary that you can easily print out, cut up, and then the students they're used to it by this point because we do it every unit. So it's like, okay, you have your derivative, now go find your Latin buddy, and then they get to trade the cards, they get to make up definitions, they get to look up the definitions to see how close they were to being correct, which is a lot of fun for them. And so it's a curriculum that I've found really builds a lot of confidence in language learning, and a lot of joy. Like, my students are really excited to come to class. They're really excited to play the games that we have. And it's been a really wonderful experience working with Elementa 1, excuse me. The videos are another great source of joy for the students. I get a lot of students who have either read Percy Jackson, seen the show, older siblings who are like Harry Potter kids. Like, we have a lot of students who are very into mythology and who come in knowing all of the Olympians. So when we show them these videos about myths that they may have heard before, but that are like, the animation and the style of the videos is so fun. The students really enjoy them. So the videos are awesome. They're in English, they're also in Latin, so kind of depending on the approach you want to take. It can be either like, okay, we're informing, we're doing content of the myth only, or it can be more of a listening activity, right? Like, okay, we're putting this video on, we're listening for the interjections, we're thinking about what they are. You have a lot of flexibility in terms of how approach the lesson just based on the resources that exist. So that's how I use Elementa 1. It's great, students love it. Elementa 2 is definitely more of a jump grammatically. But I think the great thing about that is that because students have such a positive experience in Elementa 1, they do feel really equipped and able to deal with the increased demands of Elementa 2. So I have found that the graphic novel style of the comics in each chapter, there are 2 comics in every chapter. The students love those. They're very into the characters. The dog who goes missing, scandalous. Like my students, like even students who haven't had Elementa in 2 years are like, oh my gosh, do you still have the book with Skylax? They love that, like that entire storyline they love so much. And so that's a really great way to get them reading and engaging a little bit more with more complex Latin than they saw in 5th grade. I think the resources in Elementa 2 are incredibly strong. Each unit has guided notes to help students. They have the opportunity to fill in like endings and like more information about those increasingly complex grammatical points. And they're beautiful. They're 1 page. They're super approachable. And the other thing that I think is so amazing is like in the Elementa 2 digital resources, there are all of these games and activities that help students to review endings. And like, let's be honest, are any students excited about noun endings? Mine are not. Mine are like, could not be less thrilled to think about noun endings, right? So when I come to them and I'm like, okay, we're playing a game of war, but it's actually based on the nominative and the accusative endings. And you need to know the endings because accusative matters more than nominative and plural is more powerful than singular. They're like, wow, wait a minute, this is so fun. They're learning the endings. They have no idea they're learning the endings, but it's a really fantastic way to get younger students learning these critical skills that they need for Latin down the road in a way that they are excited about and that is engaging for them. And they all live in the digital resources. It really is just a matter of printing them out, cutting them up, and distributing to the students. I think some of the things that I've done recently with my students that have gone really well. The war game is fantastic for those nominative and accusative endings. Recently, we were just doing noun adjective agreement, so we had a lot of color vocabulary. So there was a guess who game with mythological figures. You would describe their hair, what they were wearing, different colors, making sure that you're practicing getting the gender number in case correct. Apples to apples, a classic. They loved apples to apples. There's a fun one that teaches about augury. And that was like an advanced version, right? It was like, okay, we start with the guess who, we move into apples to apples, and then finally we have our first second adjectives with a third declension noun in the form of the birds. That was like a do you have it sort of moment. But again, it's like, okay, here's objectively a tough concept. First second declension adjectives with third declension nouns. And they're practicing it in a way that's fun for them, in a way that's really enjoyable. Actually, Jamel has brought up the Guess Who mythology cards, which are wonderful, as you can see. Lots of colors, lots of detail. And the students have a lot of fun with that, right? It's like, is your person, like, does your person have blue hair? So it's great. And you can do that in Latin, or you can do that in English if you have a student who's a little bit less confident. And again, these exist in the digital resources. All you do, you print them out, you read the directions, you're good to go. So I would say for me, the best part of using the Elementa curriculum is the fact that 1, all of these things exist, but 2, the students learn a lot and they do so in a way that's a lot of fun and a lot more fun than I had when I was learning Latin growing up. It really is learning for the students that we have right now. So it's been a lot of fun to use. I'm really happy that you're all here and you're thinking and you're interested in learning more about it, because my students have loved it and it's been really, really game-changing for us in my district.
Thank you. I see Andrea has another question. Andrea, do you want to speak?
Sorry. It sounds like students enjoying the activities, but I was wondering if you could talk about teachers who've had students go through Elementa and then like does do the games and stuff that are doing help them as they go into other programs?
Yeah, I think Stephanie can answer this best because her students go into Superani afterwards.
Yes, that's right. So we do 5-6 with Elementa, and then in 7th grade our students transition into Superani. It is really helpful. And I think that's really nice specifically for us because of the graphic novel sort of setup in Elementa 2. Superani, like in some of their stories, utilizes a similar format. So when we get up there and when they get to 7th grade and they see what that looks like, it's a familiar format for them. And the way that grammar is structured in the Elementa 2 book, students honestly fly through for the first few chapters of Superani, just based on the cases and the endings that they get in Elementa 2. It's been a really smooth transition for us for the past couple of years. I would say the most significant difficulty, and you see this between switching with any resources, is the vocabulary. But I do feel that the Elementa 2 vocabulary does cover a lot of frequently occurring words that they are seeing early on in Subarani, and they feel well equipped to handle that.
Yeah, and your students took the National Latin exam for intro after having just Elementa. How'd they do?
Yes. So last year we offered the intro exam to our 6th graders. So our 6th graders they had Elemental 1 as 5th graders, and then they did however many months of Elementary 2. So we like the National Latin exams in March. About half of our students got awards on the intro exam, which was amazing. It was the first time in our district we had ever given the exam to 6th grade. It was our first year in Elementary 2. Like, no one knew what to expect, but they did really well. They felt really great about the vocabulary. Like, I had a lot of students come to me afterward and like the passage at the end, right? They were like, I knew the whole passage. I knew every word. It was awesome. It was really delightful. So that was an exciting bonus.
Another question about Andrea, I think it's from you too, about whether it's geared mostly towards grammar translation. I would say definitely the textbook and some of the core lessons are very grammar translation. I grew up doing grammar translation, but there's a lot of activities that really support spoken Latin and allow for a lot more spoken Latin. For Elementa 2, we've been working on, I don't want to call them movie talks because they aren't following the exact movie talk format, but the idea of presenting students with a scene where they have all the vocabulary that they need because the scene has been catered to them, and then they produce and speak the Latin. So they're getting a visual and not worrying about grammar, but just speaking it. Or there's games where they have to role play, or there's talking about the weather. There's a lot of things that trying to get them a lot more active in the classroom. So it depends on if some teachers aren't comfortable with that, they might skip those activities, but it definitely supports that approach as well.
I would also say that, in my district, there are 4 middle school Latin teachers. Given my background, I'm a little more grammar focused than some people are. I work with a gentleman who loves speaking Latin. Like, spoken Latin is a thing that he's constantly trying to do more, and he's found that it's fun. Like, we will do the exact same activity as, like, generally as prescribed in the elementary resources. And we both take it in such different directions just based on what we're comfortable with and what we're trying to get out of it. So I would say that the activities in the elementary curriculum can be adapted based on your teaching style and what you want your students to get out of it, right? And that is, I think, the beauty of it. It will be like it will be great no matter how you choose to roll it out, but there is flexibility, and there are really wonderful recommendations as well in the teacher's manual. It'll be like, okay, like here's a variation you might try if you want to do more speaking. So that's something that exists as well.
Cool. I love this question from Alexis. I hope I'm pronouncing names right. About using this with an older crowd of students ages 17 through 21. And I know there's another school in New York City that did use it as a remedial English class because it helped with a lot of these literacy skills. And if you look at the vocabulary that's given in Elementa 1, scroll down, there's a lot that's given in Latin and Spanish and English. We also have a couple sidebars and cultural connections where there's just a little Spanish explanation of what's happening. And then we have a whole Spanish supplement that we've been working on slower than I'd like, that teaches Latin in English on one side and then teaches Latin in Spanish on the other. And it has its own comic that's set in Merida, or ancient Lusitania. And so that is forthcoming, and it's right now it's a supplement that would go along with Elementa to help students. And so we definitely support the Spanish and ESL population. That was one of the goals with the after school program. And so it's not just something that randomly happened. It's definitely in our thought process of how to really cater this for those needs and things that don't exist in other Latin textbooks.
Jamel, can I answer part of Alexis's question?
Please.
Alexis asked about how to advocate with her New York Department of Education to be able to have Elementa added as a supplemental resource. And there's a couple different ways we're doing that. One way is we're actually approved through the Nassau BOCES to offer it through BOCES. So those of you who are not in New York, you don't know this, but it's like a cooperative effort to, have resources available for all the districts, but centralized under one corporate body, basically. So you can do it through BOCES. That would be the one way. And we're working with multiple BOCES now to get agreements up. And if you're under Nassau, by the way, that it's already there for you for next year. We're just putting the final touches on that. Another way is that I've done many meetings already with principals and with boards for several different reasons in order to partner with that teacher to help advocate as a spokesperson for the Paideia Institute. So I'm willing to do that as well as part of the partnerships manager. So feel free to call on me to do those type of presentations for you. And that way you don't have to go alone into these board meetings and such. So that's a couple different methods you can take. Since you're in New York though, Alexis, I would say BOCES would probably be the best way for you.
All right, we've been there. We have 10 minutes. I spoke very quickly, trying to make this an under hour presentation. But if there's any other questions, I'm happy to take those verbally or in the chat, either way. I also want to say for everyone's getting the PDFs of the activities, but then we are having one lucky winner for a raffle of the digital resources. And so I spun the wheel earlier today as soon as about an hour before the meeting, and didn't see any other surveys come in. And so is Bo Evans here? That is our raffle winner. And so I will email him with those details. So congratulations to Bo. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. I hope this was informative. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I think I put or to Chris. Either of these emails, info@Paideia Institute or Darty@Paideia Institute, and I'd love to help answer more questions if you want to see things. Again, we can have one-on-one demos, but I hope this was helpful.
Thank you so much, Jamal. Thank you, Stephanie. Mr. Myers. It was very helpful.
Thank you. Bye-bye.